Yo, it's Austin, and welcome to the new place. It looks kind of similar, but you know, let's talk about video games. But okay, first we need to make some amends. You may remember from a long time ago, I kinda maybe said something along the lines of
3D platformers are terrible.
Listen, this big idiot here has changed a bit. Not all 3D platformers are bad. Well, most of them are, but there's some decent stuff too. You've got your Marios, your Ratchet and Clanks, your Spyros, Banjos, okay, but I want to dig into the weird shit, the bargain bin platforming mascots of yesterday and today. For those of you stuck in 1995 watching Jumanji on repeat, a 3D platformer can be defined as a game where you jump and stuff, but sometimes you fight and watch a terrible cutscene before going back to jumping onto surfaces that may or may not resemble a platform. Are we good? Yeah? Yeah, okay, good. Let's get started. When I was a little shit baby stuck in my parents' basement, we had a weekly ritual of checking out a new game from the rental store. Most weeks were filled with fun new adventures, exploring new worlds, and bringing down the numerous bad guys thrown at me. Some weeks were filled with Nagano Winter Olympics 98 for the Nintendo 64, and I've still never forgiven you, Mom. Don't think that I have. But then you'd have a week where I'd be brought a game like Chameleon Twist. This was truly the first weird experience I ever had with gaming. I mean, sure, there were all kinds of strange things around at the time, but I don't think I'd ever played anything where the aesthetic was only half as weird as the gameplay. So when you, dear viewer, think of a chameleon, what do you think of? I personally always thought of their bright color schemes, the ability to adapt to their surroundings, their big ass eyes, and, well, they're kinda cute. I guess I was wrong though, because apparently it's all about the tongues. Chameleons got crazy ass tongues. It's on the Wikipedia page like 50 times. And that's pretty much all Japan's System Supply knows about them too, because extreme tonguing is essentially the entire premise of this. But to be fair, I'd probably do the same thing in their shoes. Chameleons are fascinating. Did you know that they can project their tongues to capture prey at a speed over 13 miles an hour? That's fucking crazy, man! If you want to hear more chameleon facts in the future, be sure to let me know. Now, did Chameleon Twist capture this sense of speed properly in game? Excuse me? Well, this is Chameleon Twist, the 3D platformer about being good with your tongue, regurgitating everything inside, and generally being disgusting to everyone who might witness you. But man, the tongue was such an interesting concept to use for a main mechanic. You shoot it out and then can control the direction that it goes with the analog stick. It's used for literally everything. Reaching higher platforms, grabbing enemies, doing fucking this? Like, I wish I could pull this off in real life. So before starting the game, you get a choice of one of 4 chameleons who don't look like chameleons at all, but once the opening cinematic starts, you see yourself as an actual chameleon. And then suddenly we're playing Alice in Wonderland as you chase a giant rabbit into a hole where you become more human-like and suitable for video games. I don't understand it, but that's okay, because it's actually kind of fun. The levels are well designed, easy to navigate theme park style goodness that provide a lot of challenge over time as you get used to the platforming tongue mechanics. Bosses all have interesting and different methods of defeating and are genuinely fun to take down. The music is lighthearted and silly and sets the tone for each world. It's pretty cool having to learn new mechanics on the fly and experiment with the environment in order to conquer each stage. All of this is great with a few exceptions. Tight platforming with the N64 controller in general isn't very intuitive. You're sure to fuck up with that alone. And a couple of the bosses were frustrating, but Chameleon Twist doesn't punish you too much, as the game encourages multiple playthroughs and speedruns. Overall, I'd say that Chameleon Twist is pretty good at what it wants to do. It does nothing to offend and open up the possibilities of a new franchise to expand upon things. And then they fucked it up, man! Enter Chameleon Twist 2. More of the same, except more mediocre in every way. Sure, we've got a few upgrades here and there. For the most part, the controls are tighter. There's new mechanics like being able to jump off of walls you stick to and a fancy schmancy backpack parasol to keep you floating for a bit. Combine these things and some of the platforming segments feel really awesome. It's a damn shame that they decided to make every level the most convoluted and boring thing in the world. Same story, same gameplay structure, same concept even, but they removed the fun. Gone is the tightly designed level, and in is the big, open, boring, floating platforms everywhere. I mean, look at this. There's just nothing happening for what feels like forever. It wastes your fucking time. And for what purpose? Even the bosses are less interesting. Now they just have health bars, so they were all killed in the same manner, as opposed to the original where they each have different methods. I understand that they might have been trying to make things slightly more cohesive, but instead they just took the soul out of everything. This even applies to the character design. In the international versions of the game, all of the chameleons were redesigned to look more like, well, I don't know if I'd call that a chameleon, but it's certainly less kawaii. For some reason in Japan, they still retained that same silly look. I prefer it for sure. I mean, I still wouldn't play it, but by trying to be bigger and more interesting, Chameleon Twist 2 took a lot of the fun away and instead left us with infinite death holes and bland everything. I don't like it. So, does anyone want a video about some cool chameleon facts? So now that we got the ball rolling, let's take ourselves a look at another anthropomorphic platformer called Tail Concerto. So here's a weird one. I'm sure that there's like 6 of you out there that have heard of a game called Solitaire. It's this steampunk fantasy game filled with all kinds of human-like animal creatures that was released for the DS a few years back. Well, this is actually a spiritual sequel to a game called Tail Concerto for the PlayStation 1. Anyone know what I'm talking about? This was actually the first game developed by CyberConnect 2, who would go on to create the Dot Hack franchise, Asura's Wrath, and all of them Naruto and JoJo's Bizarre Adventure games. That's a pretty solid track record over time, so let's see how their first game holds up.
Black Caps Gang, you're under arrest!
Well, that is definitely what I expected. This shit is adorable. You play as Waffle, the dog cop. The game opens in a very Clerks fashion by showing us our hero on his day off when, ring ring, a bunch of fucking cats called the Black Cat Gang are terrorizing the town. Get out of your fucking PJs, Waffle, it's time to get to work.
I'm not even supposed to be here today!
As a cop, it's your duty to arrest everything. Grab all the cats you can find and shove them into whatever's going on here, and make your way through a bunch of different colorful platforming goodness. Actually, the first thing that comes to mind here are the Mega Man Legends games. They have kind of a similar style and color palette, and even have relatively similar controls. The biggest difference between the two is that unlike Mega Man, Tail Concerto has aged relatively well. I said relatively. Things are pretty simple here. Waffle is in control of a big-ass mecha called the Police Robo, and the amount of versatility is actually pretty impressive. There's the simple things like jumping, slapping, and shooting bubbles. Wait, fucking bubbles? But some levels will give you specific power-ups or additions for the sake of variety, such as the minecart or even a jetpack, which controls about as chaotic as it looks. You know, the cinematics and overall production here are actually pretty fucking high for a weird and obscure PlayStation 1 game. The islands look neat and all stand out. Everything feels big and open, which is impressive for a game of this generation. The Police Robo's movement looks visually super fluid, and generally everything is a joy to look at. The story here is pretty fucking ridiculous though. I hope you enjoy puns and goofy voice acting. For example, this dog princess's name is Terria. Like a terrier. Fucking great.
Princess Terria, I'm going to get in trouble if you walk around unescorted.
I think the strangest thing about all of this, though, is this weird anime-animal love triangle going on. One of the main antagonists you've got here is a kitty pirate named Alicia, who is best friends with Waffle when they were young. Despite being on opposite sides of the cat and dog Cold War, Alicia can't seem to think straight when Waffle's around. Then you have Terria, the princess who's totally rearing for that red rocket. After being saved from Alicia and the Black Cat Gang, she's totally fallen for him. Waffle doesn't seem to give a shit about either because the only thing on his mind is justice. Who needs to get involved in an interspecies relationship or dig for some of that royal gold when you can save the world? It's all super silly, but I think that adds to the charm that is this ridiculous world. That and bosses are pretty fun. You fight against Alicia like half the time, and it's pretty funny seeing her get super frustrated every time you beat her, yet having her act like Waffle is this super dreamboat afterwards. What can I say? Tail Concerto's pretty good. Also really fucking expensive. Ugh. I haven't really gotten into Solitaire Robo yet, but from what I've heard, it's pretty good and takes this concept and runs with it. I'll have to check it out another time. But for now, I want to dig as deep as we possibly can. I spent days looking for the weirdest and most obscure game that I could find, and I think I got it. Porfirio, the Cat's Adventure. The story of a big city feline trying to make his way up in the country. A story of redemption, betrayal, finding love, the journey to become top cat. A game with 14 reviews on Steam and an overall score of positive. Porfirio certainly exists, and I'm not really sure why. It's clearly one of those games that was developed for kids like your Super Solver or Jumpstart games, but, well, I've never seen this sitting around in a Staples. So Porfirio is a platformer where you play as Porfirio, and it's your goal to do little side missions and be the basic errand boy for all the other lazy cats around you. Like Prince, Lucia, and this rabbit? The story's really nothing besides the fact that you are doing cat things like racing around the yard or grabbing fish that are lying on the ground or fixing the television antenna.
Let's see. Aha! The wire came off here. Let's give it a twist.
I don't think I've played a game with such ridiculous voice acting before, though. Like, most of the characters here are overacting like crazy, and it's pretty fucking hilarious. But thanks to this being one of those garbage Steam games, multiple audio tracks just have weird glitches like this.
By the way, since you're so clever, Fishy Sunshine?
Excuse me?
But seriously, man is really evil. There's a lot of dogs and he's fenced in by thick walls. So this won't be easy. Come to me when you're ready and we'll get going.
Bravo. Good job. One of the neat things about this game was their open-ended approach to platforming. So for example, in this mission, I need to go talk to a cow in the city about some cow shit, I guess. Now you've got multiple paths you can take here. You can climb along the rooftops, carefully treading pipes and power lines in order to make your way over the fence. Or, if you're feeling a bit more risky, you can just do this. Oh yeah, this game's fucking broken.
You're broken.
Shut up. I find it really innovative that the developers Cats Who Play are wanting to teach children about speedrunning at such a young age. Who knows, maybe the next great Ocarina of Time runner can learn some tech from Porfirio. Except I'm not even sure if this game's targeted for children due to the fact that midway through, Porfirio introduces the concept of gluttony, death, and depression. Like, what kind of kids game has a character exclaim,
I'm dying.
That's like if in the middle of an episode of Blue's Clues, Steve were to face Blue, smile with a grimace, and talk about his addiction to opiates. This game fucking sucks. For some reason, Porfirio can move at speeds that make Sonic blush, as well as alter gravity to confuse wolves and boars. In fact, Porfirio might be more powerful than anyone could have imagined, as he takes on the role of a legendary hero midway through. From this trashy urban cat to the neighborhood legend who serves as the middleman in communication between boars, wolves, and cats. Why am I tasked with such a heavy burden? Don't forget about the obligatory getting a girlfriend mission. Lucia loves flowers and your shitty poetry so much that she becomes your cat girlfriend. But you know, not all things last forever. Eventually you're given a cutscene that was tossed into a JPEG artifact grinder about 100 times, where Porfirio gets the fuck out of town and it ends. But not before fucking Comic Sans. Porfirio the Cat's Adventure sucks, but you should play it anyway. I don't know, maybe you'll enjoy it. Okay, that's enough with the anthropomorphic and animal games. Next up, we got Billy Hatcher and the Giant Egg. No? I don't want to do that. Billy Hatcher and the Giant Egg is one of those always mentioned but never really talked about platformers on the GameCube. It's weird, it's charming, and it sure has a hell of a lot going for it. Good old Sonic team developed this, and it totally shows in a lot of the atmosphere. Colors are bright, the music, for the most part, kicks ass. We're even continuing our weird animal vibe with the whole chicken suit thing.
Yeah, man, I really like Billy Hatcher. I remember seeing all kinds of commercials for it on TV when I was a kid, probably in between episodes of shows like Sonic X and Ultimate Muscle.
Yeah, man, Ultimate Muscle was pretty rad. Wait, who are you?
This is the childhood of every YouTube commenter speaking. Get on my level.
Oh. Okay, sure.
Billy Hatcher is this really cool gem for the GameCube that just oozes charm all over the place. The story is super silly, but seems like something you'd like quite a bit. You take control of this kid named Billy, and things go from 0 to 60 the second you stumble upon this legendary chicken suit. Once you do, Billy gains the power of a chicken, enabling him to do all kinds of crazy stuff with eggs.
It's pretty funny, actually. Like, why the fuck am I suddenly in this magical chicken world in the first place? I can't help but feel that Billy stumbled upon some drug den and is now hallucinating that he's some godlike chicken mother. The second you start tossing eggs left and right, I instinctively want to start playing this like it's a Katamari game. I mean, you even grow your eggs by rolling over fruit like power-ups. Everything seems set up to be a really fun and grand classic platformer, but I don't really like it.
Wait, what?
Yeah, it kinda sucks.
How can you say that? I mean, I get this might not be your thing, but I don't see how you could actively dislike a game like this. Just look at it, it's adorable. I mean, okay, it's not perfect, especially with the gameplay mechanics. The eggs can be a bit wonky, especially when it comes to the platforming, but I don't see how these tiny little flaws could massively hinder the experience.
Tiny little flaws? Then how do you explain this? This wasn't like a coincidence or anything. This happened consistently multiple times. Like, yeah, I get that some of you might consider Billy Hatcher to be one of those big nostalgic games, but have you played it recently?
I mean, a little bit, but I still don't think this makes the game overall bad.
Okay, let's do this. Billy Hatcher is the hardest easy game I've ever played. I say this because I found all of the bosses, all the levels to be extremely easy when the controls and physics weren't destroying me. There's hardly any conveyance of how things work here, and even when you get a little tutorial, sometimes it'll just not work. Like where to shoot this cannon. Game over. And some of the levels here are just plain frustrating. At the beginning of each world, you have to rescue the Elder God chicken, which doesn't even make sense, because how does one hatch an Elder God? But one hit and zip, it's back to the beginning. Expect many game overs as you learn to deal with the physics and the temptation to turn it off. Mechanically speaking, Billy Hatcher never really evolves. Everything comes in the form of power-ups, which are extremely circumstantial. Even when you unlock the cool things, like being able to stand on the egg to make it roll, it's just temporary and never really gets used anywhere else. Oh, also, all of Billy's friends are basically the exact same character. There's no differences in the way any of them are played, and you barely get to play them anyway, so why? No one's gonna play the multiplayer mode with me, so I'm not even gonna ask. It's just gonna sit there forever sitting in front of me as I wait alone for friends forever. And that's fine, because why would you wanna play Billy Hatcher? Go play, I don't know, FootofaFerret or anything instead.
You know, I would have played it with you, but you're kind of a jerk.
I know. Can you go now?
TFTBA.
Jesus. All right. We got one game left, and I think that we saved the weirdest for last.
Graffiti Kingdom. Now, I'm sure a few of you might remember the game Magic Pendule, The Quest for Color. It was one of those weird and random Age Tech published games that came out with a focus on creativity. You'd create a doodle with the not great creation tools within the game and then go through a big RPG adventure. It was a silly little gem that, well, had some issues, but was fun nonetheless. Couple years later, we got Graffiti Kingdom for the PS2, or Rakugaku Yokoku to Maojo no Tatakai. I prefer Graffiti Kingdom, and they took a lot of the same concepts for the sequel. Create your own creature and do the video game with it, but this time it was an action platformer game with the most obnoxious and terrible main character. Like, actually, this motherfucker Pixel, and being a runaway dickhole, decides to allow some ultimate evil to escape its eternal prison, and suddenly we have to do our best to stop that. The plot kinda sucks. So do all the characters and all the voice acting, but that's okay because that's kind of fun on its own.
You really are an interesting fellow. I am starting to like you.
Don't be so disgusting.
Yeah, all girls are nasty. All of them. All of them.
But the story here isn't what matters. I mean, all of the main characters kind of just look like a bunch of Soul Eater rejects anyway. No, it's about you creating your weird creatures and fighting with them. Graffiti Kingdom does give you a bunch of preset creatures to mess around with as well. In fact, this is how you learn moves to set to your doodles. You can use a capture ability to assume the form of the creature you run into, which allows you to really experiment with the mechanics and everything. And well, for the most part, it all feels really good. Combat, while simple, gives room for a lot of customization that feels awesome. I suppose while we're on about customization and creativity, we should check that out. The tools are pretty simple, but allow for a good bit of creativity to shine through. You can control colors, thickness, and draw things on with a pen. And now for my first creation. I'm not an artist. Okay, let's try again. Why can't I even get that right? What the heck? It's fucking hilarious watching your little creatures move though. While creating, you get to determine what body parts will be what. You can assign blobs to be arms, legs, or even things that spin. What seems like it would be a weird tank creature turns into this. It's art. Once I got a lot of attacks from other creatures, I tried to make Strex, and I did, poorly. I'll try again later. As for the game itself, well, I mean, it's relatively solid, but after a while it seems to get a little boring. Sure, you're leveling up overall and gaining access to new abilities and part types, but it doesn't seem to get very deep. And despite being a platformer, all of the precise jumping moments feel pretty off. Graffiti Kingdom definitely seemed to focus a lot on its creation engine and less on the game itself, which makes it feel a little shallow. I'm taking out bosses, but this is starting to get boring. I think your time spent with Graffiti Kingdom will solely depend on how much you enjoy making weird doodles. Speaking of, let's try to make Strex one more time. I decided to use the pen to give him proper details, and hey, that's a lot better. Oh god, Chris, what have I done? That's much better, but it still sucks.
Overall, Graffiti Kingdom's just okay. I mean, if you're looking for like something to express your creativity with and not a good gameplay, I guess it's pretty alright. I don't really know how to end this video, so here's a montage of my doodles. Bye-bye.
Hey guys, thanks for watching. Sorry this one took so long to come out. I've been, well, moving across the country. Make sure to check out FootofaFerret and the collab that we did. He's a good guy. I'm gonna be getting really into streaming and doing a lot of stuff soon, and a bunch of videos coming up on the horizon, so make sure you guys like the video, comment, subscribe, do whatever you want to do, and I'll see you guys next time. Nevermore is great though, it's a good song.